In this episode, we're going to use the Domino DF500 to do the joinery for our beveled tapered legs, to our aprons, and also our tabletop. Let's get to it. So the first step in the assembly process, we're going to focus on the frame of the tabletop. I want to get that together, make sure it's nice and square, all the joints line up perfectly. I've gone ahead and I've labeled everything so I know which corners are going to go together. That also lets me know what my reference face for the domino is. The reason I'm focusing on getting this done first is because I've already gone ahead and cut these, but they're cut long. I had cut these long because I want to make sure that I get a nice tight joint. So once I get that clamping pressure on there, I can cut these to length and they'll fit in there perfectly. And then I can go to dominoing those. So we're going to be using the Domino 500 for all the mortising on this project. I've got it set up with the 5mm cutter, and we're going to be using the 5 by 30mm tenons. These are the Sippo mahogany tenons. These are more for outdoor projects. They're more resistant to insects and weather. To make sure all my corners line up perfectly, I'm going to be utilizing the flaps that are on the domino. So that'll be easy. I can just reference off the corner. Now I want to put 2 tenons in each corner. So I need to go through and put 1 mark in each corner to line up with the clear plastic viewing window that's on the domino itself. If you want to learn more about the Domino 500, you can visit our Festool USA YouTube channel. So there's a couple more adjustments I will make on the domino. First, I'm going to set the fence to 90 degrees and lock that down. Next, I need to adjust the height of the domino fence, and I'm going to set that at 20. So that's 20mm. That's approximately the thickness of my material. And the last one is the plunge depth of the machine. I've already got it set to 15mm, which is half the length of my domino tenon. So something else I really like about the Vaxis is its flexibility. I can rotate it to whatever position I need, and then I'm ready to do my mortises. That first mortise that I did was a tight mortise, so it was exactly the same width as this tenon. So that's going to align the outside point of my miters, make it nice and clean looking. The next one I want to do, I don't want it to be tight, I want a little bit of movement in there. So there's adjustment on the domino. I can set it to a loose mortise, so it's a little bit wider than the actual tenon itself. To do that, I have to make sure the domino itself is turned on, and then I just turn the green dial. So now it's just a matter of repeating the process for all the different corners. With all the mortises done, now we can move into the dry fit process. So I just take one of my Sippo tenons, push that into place, loose mortise, push it together, and gives me a nice clean joint. So once I have all the tenons in, I can put it in some light clamp pressure, no glue, just dry fit, and verify that, for one, it's square, all my joints are looking good, and also that I want to make sure that these two are running perfectly parallel. So if everything's square, everything's parallel, then I can grab a final measurement for my slats. Once I have that, I can go ahead and cut one and make sure that it's fitting nice and snug, and then I can set the stops on my Kapex to cut all the other ones exactly the same. So when you're cutting that very first one, take your time on it and just sneak up on that measurement. It may take 1 or 2 cuts, but you want to have a little bit of friction when you put it in there. Now this part of it's a lot of it's personal preference on how far you want to space these out. What I've actually done is I've got it to where a 12mm tenon to space this out. And you can use whatever you want. It doesn't have to be this exact spacing. You can take one of the slats out and make wider spacing. You can even add another one. You can double up 6mm tenons. You can do just about whatever you want. A lot of it's personal preference. And then once I have that done, I need to come through and mark for all my mortises. I'm not going to be able to use my flaps like I did before because this board and this board, there's no edge to reference off of. So I just need to come through. I'm going to be using that 5mm tenon again. And what I'll do is I'll just hold that up there and I'll just make marks approximately where I want them to go. Once I have my mortise locations marked out, the last thing I want to do is I want to go through and I want to mark at least one end with A, or I can mark the other end with B. I just want to make sure that when I take these all out, I don't start flipping them this direction, because if I do that, these may not line up with those marks. And then all of a sudden when I go to put it all together, I have all sorts of problems. So I want to make sure, I'll go ahead and mark A on all of these. So with everything laid out, I can go ahead and start making the mortises in both the slats and the frame. In the frame, I'm going to do tight mortises, but in the slats themselves, because I used a pencil, which has some air in it, I used my eyes to line them up, which has airs in them. I'm going to use the loose setting. So I'll get it set up and do some mortises. So with the frame done, I can adjust my axis, get my slats put on here, turn this on, change it to the loose setting, and then do all the slats. So everything's dry fitted. I've got all the tenons in there. Everything lines up. All my marks line up. You've got it set up. You're ready to go. Now you can take it apart, put some glue on there, glue it back up, throw some clamps in, use your spacers, and then it'll be time to dry it out. For the process of putting the mortises in the legs is a little bit different. I'm going to use 3 total mortises. One at the top, one at the bottom, and one in the middle. For the top and bottom mortises, all I'm going to do is just reference my flaps off that top edge, off the bottom edge. Now for the middle one, all I do is I just cut a gauge block. I don't have to measure anything, just about center, and I'll reference off the bottom on all of those. That way when I do a loose mortise on the bottom and the center tenon, they'll line up no problem. So when I'm setting the height of the fence of the domino, I want to make sure that I have it as low as possible, because I want that mortise to be as close to this short point as possible. If I take it down here too far, it's going to blow out the back, which I don't want. So in setting the height, I loosen the fence, bring it all the way up, and go ahead and set it at 45 degrees first. Set that first, then get my step gauge out of the way, push that all the way down, lock it in place. Make sure you set your angle first and then bottom your fence out. With all my layout done, it's just a matter of putting 3 mortises in each leg. So now that we've got all the mortises cut, we can do dry fits with the actual domino tenons, check for a good fit, and then go for glue up. All right, so with all those dry fitted, next we can move to glue up. Now I know we still have to cut the apron, but what I want to do is get these all dried up, and then I'll actually set them on the bottom side of the table where they're going to be placed, and I can measure in between there to get my final apron measurement. To continue the build video, click here, or check this out, and don't forget to subscribe.